Okay, thank you. All right. Good evening. I'm Erin Wright, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
And I'm Spencer Williams, Director of Land Use and Topography for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
This uniform land use review procedure public hearing is being conducted from the Brooklyn Borough Hall courtroom on Wednesday, March 26, 2025. Please note that this hearing is being streamed via WebEx and recorded to comply with the open meetings law. The video will later be posted on the Brooklyn Borough Presidents YouTube channel. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. Following each applicant's presentation and any questions from the chair, members of the public who are in attendance tonight will be invited to testify on the applications. All comments are limited to 2 minutes. While this meeting is being live streamed, we do not accept virtual testimony. Members of the public may also submit comments to testimony@brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration until Friday, March 28th, 2025. Please call the first item.
Calendar item number 1, North 7th Street rezoning. A private application for a zoning map amendment to rezone 9 lots on North 7th Street between Berry Street and Bedford Avenue from R6B and R6B-C24 to R6A-C24, and a zoning text amendment to designate the mandatory inclusionary housing area. The proposed actions would facilitate a 26,874 square foot mixed-use building with 28 dwelling units, including 7 affordable units in the Williamsburg neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 1. On March 14th, 2025, CB1 issued a favorable recommendations with the conditions that the applicants will give CB1 office and the community a point of contact to receive and respond to problems and complaints during construction, that the applicants will actively communicate with the CB1 office and will provide the office with a schedule of activities that will affect the neighborhood, and in good faith, the applicants will consider contributing to the enhancement of nearby streetscape. Please state your name and present this application.
Good evening, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. Mr. Williams, Ms. Wright, thank you for having us here today to discuss the North 7th Street rezoning. All right. So this is a straightforward rezoning which allows for rezoning from existing R6B and R6B C24 districts to an R6A C24 district within Community Board 1 in Williamsburg. The project area consists of roughly 8 lots, of which 4 lots comprise the development site and an additional 4 lots are included in the rezoning area. The applicants, as is the case with all such rezonings, would seek a text amendment to allow for MIH options 1 and 2. This proposal particularly would allow for a roughly 26,800 square foot 6-story mixed residential and commercial building, which would allow for 28 dwelling units, 7 of which would be permanently affordable. In addition, it would allow for roughly 3,300 square feet of ground floor commercial use. As you can see from the zoning map, the lot in the center of the circle is split between existing M1 to R6A and R6B districts. On this block, this was a subject of the Williamsburg rezoning, which rezoned half the block to the R6A designation and half the block remained R6B. The rezoning would allow for the R6A zoning district to be spread to cover the existing R6B portion of the block. So this is the zoning district boundary. You can see from the dotted line the termination of the proposed zoning district boundary about 100 feet from Bedford Avenue and continue to Berry Street. The area highlighted in red is the development site. This development site is roughly 7,600 square feet of floor area and is owned by 3 separate individuals. There are 4 individuals who are the applicants who are part of the project. They are local owners who have owned this property in some cases longer than 2 decades and have joined together in order to rezone these parcels. This is the area map, which I think tells the story well of why this is an appropriate rezoning. You have properties, again, which are backing onto an existing R6A district. So this would merely echo that context on the North 7th Street portion of the lots. In addition, the Bedford Avenue L stop is roughly 150 feet from the proposed R6A district. And there are multiple transportation options within the immediate area. Essentially, the transit-rich nature of the area, as well as the access to the sites, enables it to easily handle the proposed modest increase in bulk, which would be permitted pursuant to this rezoning. We include typical photos. The primary photos are of the zoning, the lots themselves, which would be directly affected. The development site, you can see the 2- and 3-story, as well as the 1-story portion of those buildings. And we include renderings and site photos as well, which demonstrate the nature of the proposed construction. The community board was very impressed by the proposed design here, like the fact that there would be setbacks included in the building, and also was in favor of the fact that these were local owners who were coming in and seeking to build something of lasting value to the local area, subject to the conditions that the community board enumerated. We would also add that this applicant is proposing this district in conjunction with multiple owners on the block. So despite the fact that there are merely 4 lots that are part of the development site, the square footage involved in the rezoning area constitutes roughly more than half of the zoning lots in question. So in essence, we feel that we have a strongly supported rezoning, as is demonstrated by the unanimous vote of Community Board 1. And with that, the applicant is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. 2 quick questions for the team. Have you notified the adjacent property owners?
We have, each of the adjacent property owners was notified. Of roughly 7 owners, 4 of them are involved in the rezoning, and the adjacent owners were notified. And the primary applicant, Viktor Efremenkov, has personally done so and has indicated to us unofficially that he's received their approval in terms of the rezoning.
Thank you. And how do you plan to respond to the community board's requests for additional communication during construction should your rezoning be granted?
So I think it was a good point that was made by the community board, and the owner, the primary applicant here, Victor, said he'd be happy to share his contact information as well as with his 2 adjacent applicants who are part of the rezoning. The fact is that they currently live in the area, they currently operate the buildings in the area, and at least in terms of Mr. Efremenkov, he's indicated that he has 2 family members who would be living in the building on a going forward basis. So the community board felt that that had credence, and they were happy with that answer, and that he would be responsible for communications going forward.
Thank you. The panel is now excused.
Thank you.
We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes. Okay. Has anyone who has not signed up to testify plan to testify on this item? Okay. So you can come up and please state your name. Okay. All right. So hearing no testimony for this item, This item is now closed and you can call the second item.
Calendar item number 236 Gold Street rezoning, a private application for a zoning map amendment from an R6B to a C6-2A district and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate a new 14-story mixed-use residential and commercial building with approximately 79,000 square feet of residential space, including approximately 114 dwelling units, 29 of which would be mandatory inclusionary housing units in the Bridge Plaza neighborhood, Community District 2, Brooklyn. On March 19th, Community Board 2 voted to disapprove the project. Please state your name and present this application.
Good evening, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant in the 236 Gold Street rezoning. I'm joined by Matthew Sloan of Matrix Environmental, and we are here to represent the application before the Borough President's office. Ms. Wright, Mr. Williams, next slide, please. Oh, that is me. Great. So the project here is for a rezoning of an existing district from an R6B zoning district to a C62A zoning district. This would involve primarily the rezoning of 4 parcels, as well as minor portions, 11 or 12 linear feet of 4 additional parcels, and we can show you that on the map. The rezoning of these 4 parcels would be from existing R6B to C62A. The C62 district already exists adjacent to the property to the south, as well as to the east of the property, as well as in other areas, as we'll show you on the maps. Here, this rezoning would also include a mandatory inclusionary housing text amendment to require affordability as part of the project. This is something that was not in the zoning resolution prior to 2016. So many of the earlier rezonings that took place here do not have required affordability as would be required pursuant to MIH. The action here would allow for a roughly 79,000 square foot building at 7.19 FAR. This would be a mixed use building, primarily with residential use, which would allow for 114 dwelling units, 29 of which would be permanently affordable under MIH option 1. You can see the zoning map. That'll be a little bit clearer when we look at the area map, but the zoning map does demonstrate that there is a C62 district immediately to the south of the property, a C62 district immediately to the east of the property, as well as to areas of the west of the property. The C62 zoning here has resulted in development, which is typical of C62 districts. The property to the south is at 13 stories. The property across Gold Street is also at 13 stories. So this is very much a proposal which would allow for a building which would be of a similar context to the immediately adjacent development as well as across the street. So it's apparent that this is an appropriate site for a C62A district. In addition to which, as we'll show you in the area map, other factors of this immediate area make it a prime place in terms of placement of residential on undeveloped lots. This is the zoning district boundary. Again, 4 lots primarily involved in the rezoning. To note is that these properties are undeveloped. While oftentimes we will come into the Brooklyn Borough President's office and will request rezonings where there are existing developments, including existing residential units, here that is not the case. We have vacant land, which is in an area which is rich in transit, as well as with a street system which can readily handle the additional density that's proposed here. We have the area map before you. Again, roughly 10 subway lines within roughly half a mile of the property, 4 subway stations equally within half a mile of the property, multiple bus lines as well. It is, as city planning describes, an area where transit-oriented development would be a focus. And this is exactly what the City Planning Commission seeks in terms of allowing both for existing context, with the existing C62 being able to be stretched to cover the property, as well as a transit-rich area where no displacement would occur. It is, frankly, an ideal spot for a proposed rezoning of this nature. I would also add that the C62A district, which is proposed, has advantages over the C62, which has been there for some time, in that the C62A district is, of course, a contextual district. The A designation would cap the height. Here, that would be at 145 feet. So, in essence, the nature of the C62A as a contextual district, as well as the opportunity now to provide for 29 permanently affordable units, permanently affordable for the life of the building, make this an important potential site for development. You can see the pictures of the property as well as the surrounding area. Again, you can see the adjacent building at 13 stories, and across the street, you can see the building immediately across Gold at 13 stories. An area where density is within the immediate context of the area, including adjacent to the parcel. This is a proposed rendering of the building, demonstrating a 6-story portion to the north, as well as a portion to the south, which goes up to 14 stories, 145 feet, with setbacks above the 10th story. We include illustrative plans and materials, again, as a rezoning. This is just an illustration, but to give you an idea, limited amount of commercial space on the ground floor, recreation area for the tenants on the ground floor, carrying up to the 2nd floor, and then a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedrooms on the upper floor. To note, the bedroom counts here are slated towards 1 and 2 bedrooms, allowing for larger units in terms of the availability, both for the market rate units as well pursuant to MIH as for the affordable units. So that is the sum total of the presentation. We did not get an approval from Community Board 2, who indicated in their resolutions, importantly, that they were interested in generating units at the site. They were interested in a building with less bulk and with greater affordability. So it was not that they wanted the property to remain undeveloped. From the conversation at the Land Use Committee, and the Brooklyn Borough President's Office can look at those, that discussion in those minutes. They were not interested in maintaining an R6B. They were interested in something more than exists at the site. They just had an issue in terms of the existing massing bulk of the building and wanted additional affordability. So with that, myself and Matthew, the applicant team, would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Just 2 questions. Have you considered additional commercial or office uses at this site?
So it's something we've talked about internally as an applicant team. The C62A allows for a relatively robust commercial square footage. To date, the consideration has just been for a small amount of commercial space to service tenants of the building. Having said that, as an applicant team, we'd be happy to look at other scenarios to the extent that additional commercial was warranted.
And you spoke to this a bit already, but any additional concerns that were raised by the community board outside of the bulk, the affordability and massing concerns?
So there was some small conversation that became a larger conversation about the additional lots which were included. It's hard to see on this map. Actually, you could probably see it on the tax map a little better. I discussed the fact that there's an 11 to 12 linear foot portion for those 5 lots at the rear, which essentially creates somewhere around 1,000, 1,500 square feet of development rights for each of those properties. So that was something that was discussed at the community board. I think there was robust discussion at the community board. There was, the hearing itself was, at least 2 hours long. But a lot of it really centered around the bulk of the building. The affordability was kind of an issue as well, but there weren't many specifics in terms of what that affordability would look like. Of course, the project would have to apply MIH, but really what much of the conversation was around this massing. Obviously it's illustrative. As we are in the ULURP process, there's discussion around building design and massing. The applicant understands the sensitivity to these issues, and as the process proceeds, we'll be interested to hear from all of the stakeholders in ULURP in terms of, how this building should be laid out. But that was really the focus of the community board conversations.
Thank you so much. The panel is now excused.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes.
The first speaker will be Juliet Abelli, followed by Joseph.
onto 150-plus-year-old R6B zoned three-story homes. Preserving these buildings was the essence of the rezoning approved in 2003. My name is Juliette Belli, and I have lived on Concord Street for 59 years. My family has been in the neighborhood since the late 1800s. I urge you to reject the proposed 14-story building, which is not in compliance and with the existing zoning, and would be nearly 5 times the height of the existing 3-story homes it'll overshadow. As you heard, the developer's proposal was already rejected by the full board on March 19th, and that was based on the rejection by the CB2 Land Use Committee on March 5th. Both the committee and the full board heard from the neighbors and the developer. Both rejected the proposal as it does not comply with the existing zoning, which was established after much discussion with the community board and city planning in 2003. I join with my neighbors in objecting to this building, and you will hear from several of them this evening. Did I max
Thank you
out?
so much.
Got a little bit more time.
You have
Okay, sorry.
more time if you'd like.
So just to pick from my long statement, it was more recently, and as part of the rezoning that was approved in 2003, but started in 1999, a mix of zoning was agreed to in Bridge Plaza. However, the new construction that has been built since then has adhered to the R6B zoning and did not disrupt the essence of Bridge Plaza. We've absorbed over 1,700 new units in our area, including almost 200 part of the affordable housing, inclusionary housing zoning that goes with that. And please do not be swayed by the mischaracterization and misrepresentation of the developer's
Not
presentation.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Joseph, you're the next speaker. Joseph will be followed by Taylor Watson.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Nebbiolo, resident of Concord Street and Bridge Plaza. And I also urge you to strongly disapprove this proposition to build a 14-story building. As a community in the early 2000s, Bridge Plaza fought very hard to protect the integrity of the small neighborhood that we have left. It's 2 streets of brownstones and Georgian-style buildings. My building, or our family's building, is one of 4 cast iron buildings in Brooklyn. You know, we are trying to preserve that integrity of this neighborhood and of the characteristic. The reason that Bridge Plaza proposed to change the zoning to have larger buildings on the outskirts of the area and retain the smaller zoning on the interior was so that this neighborhood was preserved in a way that gave it some context. The building itself does not provide that context. The renderings don't provide the context that it has in relationship to the rest of the community. And a lot of the statements that are made about that area are not truly concise. Those lots are vacant now, but for a long period of time, were not vacant. They were not built on, but they were always maintained and owned by people. There used to be businesses there that operated, and only until they were sold were they then vacant. So I just I ask you to consider the neighborhood and the context of this building. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Taylor, you're the next speaker. And Taylor will be followed by Andrew Begg.
I'll keep my comments brief, as I did not mean to check off speaking tonight, but I oppose the rezoning. I am a transplant to the neighborhood. I grew up in Cobble Hill, which is a very beautiful and historic neighborhood. And honestly, our neighborhood has been overshadowed and crowded in by the development of the surrounding area. And I think that it's a loss for the true community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Begg and I'm a resident of the neighborhood at 35 Duffield Street. And I want to speak to the assertion that every community needs to do its part. And this is something that we are hearing from the elected officials. And what I want to emphasize is that Bridge Plaza is a community that has done its part. We had a 2004 rezoning that had a very careful compromise, and we want to stick to that plan. We want to honor the deal that the community made with the residents, between the residents and the city in 2004. This is a community that was pro-development and pro-rezoning. Seeing the demand for new development, the Bridge Plaza Association got in front of the trend in 2004 and initiated the rezoning itself and carefully negotiated throughout 2003, 2004 with the city planning department a community-wide rezoning plan. That was detailed, it was well planned, and at its heart was a compromise. The compromise would allow tall buildings and high-density development in the majority of the neighborhood, particularly around the edges where there are wide streets, but to keep a low-rise zone centered around the intersection of Concord and Duffield Streets. That low-rise zone is tiny. It's really tiny. And we're trying to preserve a tiny space of low-rise zone. But that zone protects the historic heart of a neighborhood and the last remaining tract of historic working class housing in downtown Brooklyn. The oldest house in the neighborhood is a cottage from the 1700s. The environmental analysis for the 2004 rezoning went into great detail of the history of the neighborhood, and none of that was mentioned in the environmental analysis for this application. That deal has worked, as Juliet pointed out. There's been more than 1,700 new apartments built in the community, and vacant lots have been filled in with development. And they've done so in that historic low-rise zone in a way that has enhanced the character of those blocks. My own building, for example, is 4 stories tall, and it duplicates the facade of a historic warehouse in Dumbo. On the edges of the neighborhood, there's a 20-story tower on Flatbush Avenue and Chapel Street, another 20-story tower on Bridge and Nassau Streets, 30-story
And Andrew,
tower
I'm
on Front
I'm
Street.
terribly sorry, but your time is up. If you
sure.
have written comments, if you would like to finish your last point.
I will. What I'll do is I'll give you a pictorial guide to show you the character of the neighborhood, none of which is also included in the current application. So I'll just repeat my opening point. The community had a deal with the city in 2004. That deal has worked. It's produced masses of new housing, and we want to stick to the deal. We want the city to honor that compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. The next speaker will be Gianna Nebbia. Will be then followed by, I believe, Nancy. Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Gianna Nebbia, and I live at 182 Concord Street, which is on the corner of Concord and Duffield. It is a residential, quiet, lovely neighborhood of low-rise 3, 4, and 5-story buildings that I urge you to protect by maintaining the current zoning regulations and objecting this proposed development. I want to reiterate that the Land Use Committee overwhelmingly suggested rejecting this application due to the effects it would have on our neighborhood, and the Community Board also voted in agreement with the Land Use Committee. The full Community Board, along with the community members present tonight, are comprised of individuals who care tremendously about affordable housing. And we want to make it clear that we would not be here protesting this development tonight if it were being built in compliance with the current zoning laws. In addition to creating more housing, there must be emphasis on maintaining the quality of life of residents in smaller, really small Brooklyn neighborhoods by not towering over them and cutting off their access to light and fresh air. We do this through zoning laws, which have been proven to work well for our neighborhood since implemented over 20 years ago. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Vinicom. My husband Bill and I live in Bridge Plaza in a home that has been in our family for over 100 years. The site at 236 Gold Street was once home to three-story residences lost during the Robert Moses era when Bridge Plaza endured upheaval. Eminent domain, the BQE, the widening of Gold Street all reshaped our neighborhood. Bridge Plaza holds some of the Brooklyn's oldest row houses built in the early to mid-19th century. These homes tell the story of Brooklyn working class history, housing dock workers, artisans, naval officers, all who helped make the Navy Yard a national powerhouse. Their architecture, ranging from Federal to Greek Revival and Italianate, is a rare glimpse into Brooklyn before the industrialization took hold. Yet, despite their significance, these homes have faced ongoing threats, from past urban renewal projects to today's development pressures. The zoning changes approved in 2003 by this board were designed to protect the neighborhood's historic low-rise character. The rezoning proposal that is being considered today disregards that vision. For this reason, I urge the Borough President to oppose this rezoning, and I thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Flory Nebben. Is there, oh, I see you, Flory. Thank you.
My name is Flory Nebbiol, and we live on Concord Street, and we have lived there for 40 some odd years. I urge you to reject this proposal. It's a residentially zoned neighborhood where the allowable building height is 4 stories. There's no reason whatsoever to approve this prohibited non-compliant building. Back in August 2003, the neighborhood rezoned to include residential as well as commercial zoning. The rezoning was the result of years of study, discussion, meetings towards a well-planned zoning. To that end, the core of Bridge Plaza neighborhood was zoned R6B to preserve the existing homes, many, as you have heard, built over 150 years ago. Please, I urge you to note that the rezoning in 2003 for many buildings have been built in Bridge Plaza, and all of those building owners and developers have complied with the existing zoning. These include many low-rise buildings, 4 stories, some of which were developed on adjacent lots. 3 lots by one owner and 2 lots by another owner. And if you note that the application for the non-compliant building misleadingly characterizes the neighborhood as high-rise industrial, it is not. It's a residential neighborhood. I urge you again to please oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we've exhausted all of the folks who have signed up. If you would like to provide comment, can you please approach the podium and state your name for the record?
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Vinicombe, and I'm glad to be here tonight. In October of 2023, the Borough President released a comprehensive plan for Brooklyn. It's a detailed document evaluating the borough's current state and providing guidelines for decision-making in critical areas such as health, housing, environment, and transportation and community services. And I urge you all to read it. It's a good read. In that comprehensive plan, the plan highlights the fact that in 1989, the city charter enacted a 197A plan, which empowered communities to take active roles in shaping their neighborhoods. In the early 2000s, inspired by that framework, the Bridge Plaza community proactively engaged in planning for its future. In collaboration with city planning, the community board, residents proposed a zoning change aimed at balancing responsible development with the preservation of the neighborhood character in mind. This plan received support from the community board, the borough president, city planning, and the New York City Council. As a result, the Bridge Plaza plan established 20 years ago has successfully fostered property development and expanded housing opportunities while maintaining the community's unique identity. The Borough President's comprehensive plan also includes maps that highlights the demographic trends and changing over time. Notably, the population around Bridge Plaza and in Bridge Plaza within Community Board 2 grew by 19 to 31%, population growth between 2010 and 2020. Additionally, the number of mandatory inclusionary housing, MHI units, affordable housing, saw a significant increase ranging from 306 to 646 to as many as 647 to 1,175 units, making it one of the Brooklyn's fastest growing areas. This growth in population and affordable housing has been achieved while preserving the character of Bridge Plaza, underscoring the success of the Bridge Plaza plan and its long-term vision. And people here tonight, many of them worked on it. Community Board is also very proud of it and that they did this. And it's very unique that we had that opportunity 20 years ago. We stand before you tonight. Before you tonight is a proposal to alter Bridge Plaza.
William, I'm going to ask you to make your final point. Your time is
Thank you.
expired.
For the benefit of a single private developer, undermining a plan that has successfully promoted responsible development while preserving the character of Bridge Plaza community. For these reasons, I and many others raised tonight, I urge you to stand with the Community Board, the Land Use Committee, and the members of Community Board 2, and also the residents of Bridge Plaza in rejecting the zoning application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional members of the public who are not a part of the applicant team who would like to provide comment? If so, please approach the podium.
Great. Thank you all. Hearing no further comment, this item is now closed. And you can please call the third item.
Calendar item number 3, 47 Hall Street rezoning. A private application for a zoning map amendment M12 to M16A-R8 and M15 districts, and a zoning text amendment to facilitate an approximately 816,000 square foot mixed-use development, including approximately 285,000 square feet of commercial space and 611 dwelling units, is being sought by RXR 947 LC at 47 Hall Street in the Wallabout Neighborhood Community District 2, Brooklyn. On March 19th, 2025, Community Board 2 voted to approve the project with the following conditions. Increase the number of affordable units to 35% of the total. Increase the number of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units to at least 30% of all units. Increase the number of units available at 40% of the area median income to 20% of the affordable floor area. In addition, the condition that the developers must pay for the installation of shelters and countdown clocks at bus stops on Hall Street at both Park and Flushing Avenues. A recommendation, the New York City Department of Transportation to provide a public forum to discuss concerns about additional multimodal traffic the development may bring to the neighborhood, and that the New York City Department of Transportation ban left turns from Park Avenue onto Hall Street. Additional conditions were added to suggest that developers share their plans for hiring and training locally for construction and encourage their commercial operators at the site do the same for further retail and service jobs. In addition, equal quality housing for the market rate and affordable units was called for by the full board, as well as a percentage of affordable units to be set aside for local NYCHA residents, and that RXR should demonstrate accountability for past projects. With that, please state your name and present the application.
The applicant team can.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nalima Panoli. I'm a development project executive with RXR. Thank you to the Borough Presidents team for holding this hearing and giving us the opportunity to present our project. As was stated, we're here to present our project plans for 47 Hall Street. This is a rezoning application that will facilitate the adaptive reuse and conversion of a roughly 900,000 square foot campus that will deliver over 600 units of housing and approximately 300,000 square feet of non-residential space. As mentioned, this hearing is being held as part of the ULURP process. We just completed the community board review, and we'll go through our timeline and process in a little bit more detail over the course of the presentation. For a brief background on RXR, we are a large developer based in the New York region. Our portfolio includes over 30 million square feet of commercial property. We have nearly 12,000 units of residential that are in development or under operation. We also partner quite extensively with municipalities and public agencies on large public-private development projects. Some of the pictures below show our recently completed projects. We worked on Pier 57 in Manhattan. We're one of the developers leading, partnering on the redevelopment of Terminal 6 at JFK Airport. And then to the left, you see some of our recent residential projects in Brooklyn. Most notably, we've been partnering with Long Island University on the redevelopment of their downtown Brooklyn campus. Phase 2 of that development is currently under construction, which will replace an old garage building with a mixed income residential tower with over 50,000 square feet of academic space. The project site is located in the Wallabout District, which is the area between Flushing Avenue and Park Avenue. It's abutted by the BQE to the south. BQE kind of bifurcates the Wallabout from the residential neighborhoods of Clinton Hill and Fort Greene. The site is a 2.6 acre parcel, which encompasses an entire city block and lies right across from the Navy Yard. The site comprises of 10 buildings, which total today approximately 600,000 square feet. RXR acquired the property in 2016. Our plans at that point were to convert the campus into a dynamic commercial hub that would cater primarily to creative tenants. We put in a significant investment into the property to significantly upgrade it. However, due to challenges with COVID and the evolving office market, the campus has remained primarily substantially vacant since then. So we're now pursuing a repositioning through a rezoning that would allow us to introduce a mixed-use program on site by introducing residential uses alongside commercial and retail uses. The site was most recently temporarily used by the city as an emergency shelter for asylum seekers, but that use has since concluded. Sorry. The images on this slide show the site following the upgrades and restoration. We put in over $100 million to fully restore the campus, bring it up to energy code, replacing everything from the lobbies, exterior grounds, windows, and the entire building systems. As I mentioned, the goal at that point was really to convert this to kind of this commercial campus, and our leasing efforts, which extended over a period of 3 to 4 years, we conducted hundreds of tours with both office and industrial tenants. But the leasing was significantly impacted primarily by COVID and kind of the shifting market dynamics, but also certain site constraints. Some of the major factors included declining demand from large commercial tenants from the targeted industries, which impacted their ability to acquire an anchor tenant for this campus. This is a large campus. It's roughly 600,000 square feet, so it's a significant amount of commercial space in the area. We also did some outreach to a number of industrial tenants, but which were not really suitable for the site. Most notably, the site faces a lot of competition from the Navy Yard, and this is comparable to other properties in the Wallabout District, but also the specific constraints on the site do not really allow for traditional manufacturing uses. This shows the location of the site within the Wallabout District. The Navy Yard, of course, to the north has continued to grow as this really vibrant economic hub. They are also in the process of advancing their master plan, which will add over 4.6 million square feet of new space over the next few years. In comparison, the uses within the Wallabout district, Wallabout district in general has seen fairly limited growth. And what you see today are, predominance of lower intensity industrial uses, which are primarily limited to storage, warehousing, distribution, and auto-related uses. But we think that the Hall Street campus is, presents a unique opportunity to serve as a bridge between these two really thriving neighborhoods. You have the residential neighborhoods to the south and the Navy Yard to the north. And this campus presents an opportunity to activate this area of Wallabout with a mix of uses, given that you have this kind of major innovation district that does not have a lot of high density around. Our plan allows for the opportunity to start to create a mixed use edge to the Navy Yard, which can complement all of the jobs and activity taking place there. The project site offers access to multiple transportation options. It's served by multiple bus routes that provide connectivity to downtown Brooklyn, Long Island City, Williamsburg, and Grand Army Plaza. The site is adjacent to the Brooklyn Greenway, which is a two-way bike lane along Flushing Avenue. The closest subway stop is about 4 blocks south of the site, the Clinton Washington Avenue stop on the G line. And the site also benefits from ferry access at Dock 72, which provides connectivity to Lower Manhattan. The existing campus comprises 10 buildings, which are arranged around a series of open areas. Our strategy around the repositioning was to pursue a rezoning that would allow us to bring in a significant amount of housing through new development and conversions that still kind of generally fit within the broader context, but also allow us to preserve a large part of the site for commercial uses. So as part of our redevelopment plan that would be facilitated through the rezoning, we are seeking to redevelop the 2 buildings A and J along Flushing Avenue into a new mixed-income residential tower. Building B would be converted for residential uses. Buildings F, G, H, and I along Hall Street would include retail on the ground level and commercial spaces on the upper levels, and buildings C and D would include self-storage uses. This kind of summarizes our proposed program, which will have nearly 600,000 square feet of residential space, including approximately 620 units that have between 150 to 180 permanently affordable units. We will be preserving over 100,000 square feet of commercial spaces and creating roughly 48,000 square feet of retail at the ground level. This is a ground floor plan which illustrates how our proposed design seeks to integrate the mix of uses while creating a more connected and engaging environment and kind of strengthening relationship of the site with the surrounding neighborhood. The new development, the new residential development would anchor the site on Flushing Avenue and create a strong retail presence along Flushing Avenue, as well as in the corner of Flushing and Hall Street. The residential entrances are kind of strategically positioned along Flushing Avenue, as well as through this interior court, which would be landscaped and activated to enhance the permeability of the site. And then, as mentioned, all of the ground floor spaces along Hall Street would be converted to retail. Building B would accommodate a parking garage that's sized to kind of serve the anticipated needs of the tenants on the site. And building C and D which are along Park Avenue at BQE, would accommodate self-storage uses. This is a perspective of the campus along Hall Street. And, the goal of the rezoning ultimately is to establish a mixed-use district that will bring in over several hundred units of housing, including permanently affordable housing to the neighborhood, while preserving a significant portion of the campus for commercial uses. And this perspective kind of illustrates the potential of revitalizing the site into more of a 24/7 mixed-use campus. The rezoning will also help activate what we see as a major north-south corridor on Hall Street, connecting the Navy Yard and the residential neighborhoods to the south by incorporating a diverse mix of uses through streetscape enhancements, as well as thoughtfully designed ground floor retail that will help activate the streets and the publicly accessible open spaces within the campus. This is a perspective of the new development along Flushing Avenue that's looking west. And this is a perspective of one of the open spaces on Hall Street that lies between the new development and the commercial buildings. Again, this kind of illustrates how we envision designing and activating these open spaces through landscaping, street furniture, and especially ensuring that the retail along these spaces can kind of help activate and spill out onto these areas to encourage kind of connectivity and activation of the open areas within the campus. And I'll hand it along to Carol Rosenthal from Fried Frank, who is a land use attorney, to walk through the list of zoning actions.
Thank you. Good evening to the Borough President's office, members, and to others. There are two ULURP actions that are part of our application. The first is the zoning map amendment to rezone what is an M12 district and into two districts. One is an M15 district, which is in that purple area within the kind of in the C or the U hole. And then along the avenues and along adjacent to that is an M1CA district. And so the M1CA district would allow for M16A would allow for both residential and commercial uses and manufacturing uses because it is a MX district or a mixed use district. And in the whole, the M15 district, that is commercial and manufacturing uses that would be permitted. The site is overbuilt right now. It's almost double its allowable floor area, and this would bring it into compliance as well as allow for new residential development. In addition to this, there is a map change, and the map change is to map this area as an MIH area, and meaning that, of course, inclusionary housing will be required as part of any development on the block. So the next slide is just a summary of the process, which I'm sure you know well, but we were certified by the City Planning Commission on January 1st, or not 1st, in January of 21. We've been to the community board, both the land use committee and the full board, and gotten their advisory recommendation. We're now before you. And after this, we would go to the City Planning Commission and then to the City Council. So that's our timeframe, and we're very pleased to be able to show you this slideshow, and we're here, of course, for any questions.
Thank you. Just a few questions. Has the development team considered deeper and additional affordability as an option on the site?
So we received a number of recommendations, conditions from the community board. In one of our earlier meetings with the land use committee, they requested that we consider MIH option 1 for the site, with the understanding that the 60% AMI is closer to the neighborhood's needs in terms of average median incomes. We reviewed that, we were able to accommodate that, and we communicated that to the community board in our last meeting that that is our intent to now incorporate MIH option 1 across the site. Beyond that, we have additional recommendations and conditions that have come from the community board. We are in the process of reviewing it, and we'll continue to consider those as we work on refining our plan through the ULURP process.
Thank you. Given the proposed storage use, what alternatives were considered for programming? And has the applicant completed a market study to show the demand for self-storage in this location?
Yes, on self-storage, self-storage is a use, and this is, prior to the rezoning, we've been talking to, it's a use that's permitted on site today. It's not being, triggered through the rezoning, and this was the intended plan for those buildings on the campus. We were in conversations with a number of operators, very interested operators for this use. Even prior to the rezoning, those plans were put on hold as we pursued the rezoning plans. But in terms of, the use for those buildings and considering alternate uses, as part of our development plan, when we were formulating our development plan for the site as part of the rezoning, those buildings sort of seemed the least desirable to accommodate residential and commercial uses, at least in the near term, just given the proximity to the BQE. We are going to be delivering over 600 new units and, nearly 100,000 square feet of commercial spaces, which is a significant amount of space. We think that self-storage uses for the building C and D in the near term makes sense because it would complement those uses and balance any, mitigate any potential absorption challenges that we would see as part of the initial development. That said, as Carol mentioned, the MX district does cover the entire section of that, the entire portion of that site. So we have a lot of flexibility in terms of additional uses in the future. Self-storage is what we're planning for as part of initial development, but again, self-storage leases tend to be short-term, and we have the flexibility to consider alternate uses once the development stabilizes.
Thank you. Did the applicant work with an industrial business service provider to identify manufacturing and industrial tenants back when you were looking for tenants before pursuing the rezoning? And what price per square foot was being sought for the industrial space?
Our team definitely met with a number of industrial users. I can't speak to the price per square foot that was being sought. I know that a couple of challenges that we were facing were, at least in terms of rents, we definitely weren't, we can't compete with the Navy Yard, which is able to offer space at a much more subsidized rate. In fact, when we met with the Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center recently to discuss potential tenants for this site, and they kind of acknowledged the same fact that traditional manufacturing uses are kind of tough in this location, just given the proximity to the Navy Yard. The other significant challenge that our site faced that we saw when we were talking to a lot of these industrial tenants is just the site infrastructure is not designed for traditional manufacturing uses in terms of, where the loading is located and how it can service the different buildings, the freight capacity of our elevators, the structural loading capacity of some of the buildings. Those would have been very significant and expensive upgrades to make to accommodate such uses. And given, the viability of potential tenants, that just did not make sense for the site.
Thank you. The proposed floor area chart does not explicitly call out manufacturing or industrial uses. So does the proposed makerspace necessitate mapping an MX district? And if not, why were M16 and M15 districts chosen for this application?
So there is some makerspace a little bit right now that's already been used, and it's in the M district because the M district itself will allow for that kind of use. The district designation was chosen, as I mentioned initially, to be able to absorb and be consistent with the overbuilt situation of the current manufacturing buildings, as well as to allow for meaningful new residential uses on the site.
Okay, thank you. And last question. Does the applicant have an estimate of the number of permanent jobs to be created through this proposed plan?
Yes, based on the current plan, and we worked with PGH advisors on preparing this estimate, we anticipate about 350 permanent jobs will be created as part of the proposed development plan.
Thank you. The panel is excused.
Thank you.
We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes.
Our first two speakers will be Caitlin Schuster and Stephanie Holman.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Schuster. I'm here as a representative of SEIU Local 32BJ to testify in opposition to the proposed rezoning. 32BJ is the largest union of property service workers in the country. We represent over 175,000 members, including 90,000 in New York City. 32BJ members are the workers who keep our city's buildings, stadiums, airports, public facilities clean, safe, and running. We fight to ensure that property service jobs in the residential, commercial, and security sectors in our city offer stable, family-sustaining wages and benefits, so those who keep New York safe and clean can afford to build lives here as well. To date, RXR has not made a commitment that any of the property service jobs at this development will be good, family-sustaining jobs, nor has RXR committed to using responsible contractors if it elects to contract out for these services, rather than directly employ the staff. Furthermore, 32BJ has concerns about RXR's use of a contractor called Mulligan Security at many of its properties across New York City. 32BJ members have fought hard over the years to establish industry standard health, retirement, and training benefits for security officers, but Mulligan fails to provide the comprehensive benefits earned by thousands of union security officers in Brooklyn and across the city. So we're asking the borough president to issue a negative recommendation on this project, which we're concerned would only bring bad jobs to Brooklyn. And we call on RXR to demonstrate a commitment to good jobs by using responsible contractors that will provide industry standard wages and benefits to the security, residential, and cleaning workers at its properties. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Holman. I am a security officer working here in the city, a long-time member of 32BJ. My union jobs pay me a family-sustaining wage, offers me a wide selection of training opportunities and provides quality and affordable health care for me and my family. However, I know that developers do not always commit to creating high-quality security jobs at their properties. There are thousands of workers who work the same job as me, but who live in poverty or can't afford medical care. RXR's records of using Mulligan security undermines the industrial standards for security officers across the city like me. This is bad for Brooklyn communities where these officers work and live. We ask that the Borough President issue a negative recommendations on the 47 Hall Street proposal and to ask RXR to commit to hiring responsible security contractors at its properties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Danelle Davis, followed by Xavier Ames.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Or good evening. Sorry. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Danelle Davis. I am a longtime 16-year resident of 275 Park Avenue, which is a 123-unit residential building located exactly 1 block away from 47 Hall Street. I'm also speaking on behalf of several of our residents and other neighbors that were unable to make it here today. I thank you for recognizing the area as Wallabout. It is not just the Wallabout district, it is a Wallabout neighborhood where people have lived for decades. Many of us have been champions for our neighborhoods. I have volunteered with Myrtle Avenue Brooklyn Partnership and Architects for Humanity on the Park Avenue Safety Pedestrian Plan in 2012. I was part of the BQE cleanup crew who helped clean 1 mile of the BQE when it was abandoned by Department of Sanitation when COVID hit. Prior to COVID, we have already gone through the construction of this huge complex. We have already gone through the noise and the dust and the construction and the pollution and the water disruptions. I also wanted to point out that this property, where they said it has remained mostly vacant, has not been vacant. If you are not already aware, this developer opened, unbeknownst to the entire community, a 4,000 person shelter in the summer of, I guess it was 2023. No one in the neighborhood was notified that the shelter was going to be opened. We did not have the infrastructure or sanitation or trash cans to handle an influx of that amount of people. We did not have the police force to handle that amount of people. And it was a lot to have to deal with after just having gone through COVID. So this property has not been vacant. I do still see that it's partially being used as a shelter, but at its height, there was approximately 4,000 people there in an area where we are very limited on transportation. The nearest subway is not 4 blocks away. It is 0.6 miles to get to the G train. And the upcoming bus changes that have been proposed to the B62 being removed from Park Avenue, relocated to Flushing, B57 being moved, all of those proposals were made prior to this proposal for a 600+ unit residential building. We initially saw they were also.
Sorry to interrupt you, Danelle. Your time is up. If you
Okay.
could make your last point, and we can.
Yes, the only other thing I wanted to add was that we did see in the proposal that they were asking for a variance of 21 stories, which everyone in the neighborhood is vehemently against, as it would completely block natural light to all of the homes that are east of the property. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Xavier, your next speaker. And Xavier will be followed by John Hall.
Hello, my name is Xavier Ames. I am a 15-year resident of 275 Park Avenue. We're a building of, as Danelle said, about 100 units, 123 units. This new building that is going to have 21 stories would represent 611 units, which would be roughly 1,600 new residents in this neighborhood, which is already underserved by city services. This would be a poorly planned rezoning that goes against the interests of the existing residents completely. We've got to protect the character of the neighborhood. It is a historic neighborhood of industrial and low-rise residential areas. It's 20 years of residents living there in lofts. We're talking about low-income New Yorkers, artists, and creative professionals. This would be a total change to the social makeup and the income level of this area. RXR is a very impressive company, but they do not understand this neighborhood, as has been proven by their failure with the existing building. And this would be, as Danelle brought up, another experience for all the people living in the neighborhood of disruptions, changes, modifications to our way of life and to the character of the neighborhood. Our tallest building currently is an eyesore. It's 16 stories, 1 block away from where we are. This building would completely change the skyline of this neighborhood. It would change the vibe. Forgive me. It would change the vibe completely. Park Avenue and Flushing Avenue are already over capacity. There's already noise pollution. There's already air pollution. We already have traffic problems. We are a residential commercial neighborhood. Public transit is not working for us. Trash is everywhere because there are no garbages in the neighborhood. So what we're looking at here is just a really poorly planned change by a company that does not understand the neighborhood. All the residents are against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Hall, you're our next speaker.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for your time. I am a 20-plus year resident of 275 Park Avenue. It's the only home I've ever known in New York City. I was also a former renter, an artist, a creative at 47 Hall Street before RXR decided to unceremoniously kick us all out. They wanted to create opportunities for creatives, but creatives like me were never reached out to for potential opportunities to take up new space in the new building. So instead, they cut a loss and took tax dollars to take that loss for the years throughout COVID. Additionally, the Navy Yard, Wallabout, is one of Brooklyn's oldest neighborhoods, dating back to the 1700s. We still have buildings that exist from that time period. And what this proposed build-out will do will completely change the dynamics of the neighborhood, will completely change the local businesses that I've grown to rely upon for the last 20 years, and more so, create more congestion, more traffic, more trash in an area that's completely underserved. RXR came here acting as though they just looked at an algorithm, decided to put a building in our neighborhood. The reality is they don't know our neighborhood. They said we're not a residential neighborhood. I live in a building with about 350 other people a block away from this space. There are other buildings up and down the block. There are single-family homes on Park Avenue. There are single-family homes less than a block away across the street. I have one neighbor who's lived in the building, lived in the neighborhood for over 60 years. She's over 100 years old now. She saw the BQE get built. She saw the takedown of the trains along Myrtle Avenue. And she should not have to endure the last days of her life dealing with the noise, pollution, traffic, congestion, and issues a block away from her home. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
At this point, we have no additional speakers who have signed up to provide testimony on this item. Are there any members of the public who would like to please approach the podium, state your name for the record?
Good evening. My name is Mark Landolina. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Planning for the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And I'm here on behalf of the partnership to express our strong support for the rezoning of 47 Hall Street. Although this project is not within the boundaries of the partnership's operational footprint, we believe that 47 Hall will have such far-reaching positive impacts to the adjacent neighborhoods and communities that we welcome this opportunity to express our emphatic support. This project represents an innovative approach to transforming an underutilized industrial block into a dynamic mixed-use campus. The introduction of new retail, commercial space, office space, and over 600 much-needed mixed-income housing units will bring new energy to the area. Furthermore, RXR's plans to activate public plazas and improve pedestrian connections will create a more welcoming and connected neighborhood, benefiting both local residents and the broader community. This project is a smart investment in Brooklyn's future, and I encourage the borough president to support the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional members of the public who would like to provide testimony?
All right, hearing no further comment, this item is now closed, and this ULURP public hearing is also closed. The Borough President will review these applications and submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission, which will hold its hearing on these items at a later date. As a reminder, members of the public may submit comments to testimony@brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration until Friday, March 26th. This meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everyone.